Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on another episode of Recrafting. So we got a pair of older Gucci's here that are pretty beat up and stuff. So we've got an issue with obviously the soles here, or the heels. Somebody's already done some work on it. It's a little choppy on the heels there. But yeah, we're going to be recrafting these and putting some new heel counters. You can see how beat up and damaged that is. But let's go ahead and dive in and take a closer look. So again, thanks for joining us, and like I'd mentioned, let me grab this one first to show you guys. So I already started with this one actually. This one's had new heels put on there, and as you can tell, the sole protector, it's a little wonky. Somebody, when they were sanding it, it ended up, you can see, kind of funny after they put the nail in. They never fixed it up afterwards. A lot of small details that are just a little off. In other words, for those of you who may ever be wondering with the sole protectors, so this is one of the Vibram fine lines, and you can see the Vibram logos all lined up nicely here. However, up top here, it's a little bit off center. Usually the goal is to try to have that Vibram logo centered. I do want to give you guys a full disclosure that that's a very hard thing to do, especially with a larger size shoe like this. It's not always going to line up, especially because of the design of the toe and everything, and the way everything lines up, and the size. That whole combination of all those different things might not allow you to line up the Vibram with the Vibram down here and the toe just right. So I wanted to give you guys that kind of heads up that this kind of stuff can happen. There's nothing wrong with that. You're still going to have that structural integrity of it, because this toe is considered to be reinforced since there's more material instead of grooves. When you have grooves, you have nice traction, but there is material that's missing out of that sole protector area there, and the toe is a nice reinforcement there when it's just solid like that. So thought I'd point that out to some of you. Now the other thing we're going to do is replace the heel counter, because it's shattered completely. See all that there? That's what used to be a heel counter and stuff, and it's done for. This is why you use shoe horns. This gentleman unfortunately has a habit of putting his foot in, smushes that down, reaches in with his finger, and then tries pulling this back over his heel forcefully, and not a good thing. Shoe trees are a must-have. This one is just as shattered too, and like, you guys can't see it, but I can definitely feel it. There's just a giant chunk of all that stuff down in the bottom here from doing that. So we're going to go ahead and start breaking these down. First thing I'm going to get out of the way is the insole, because we're going to have to get that out of the way anyways. So I'm going to pull that out, and we'll see what's going on underneath after someone else has did a little work on it, because internally I can definitely see some stitching. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a row of stitching here and a row here. So they never pulled the old stitches. Sometimes I know it's hard to pull the old stitches. Other times it's, if possible, go ahead and pull them. So we're going to go ahead and start breaking these down and take it from there. All right, everyone. So let's go ahead and kind of break these down. We'll start out with the heel. So we got the top lift off. There's those little nails. These are ones that are nailed in by hand right there. Nothing too crazy. But the heel base, so it looks like there has been a couple of repairs done on these in the past, so we'll go ahead and show you the heel block first, or heel base. Everyone calls it a little different. So whoever did these, they ran wire nail in here instead of actual nails from the inside of the shoe. Typically, most of these, that's what's supposed to be done. So it's just a little wire nail that gets shot in. It's not terrible, but it's also not great, especially when you're doing it on a pair of shoes like this. If you're ever wondering about this giant hole in the center right there of the heel base, that's actually very common with a number of shoes that are coming out of either Spain or Italy that we've come across. It helps reduce a little bit of the weight of the heel block, and also most of the shoes that have this, they're kind of those brands that are meant to be like showboaty, you know, for showing off a little bit. And obviously Gucci is definitely one of them. They're all about showboaty and just being a show-off type of shoe or something. And so this can actually intensify the clicking noise when you're walking, just makes more clicking sound because it's got a little hollowed out space. I've noticed that actually about a lot of them. So if you have a pair of Gucci's or other kind of luxury brand shoes that are like this, there's a chance that there may be a hole there, but majority of the time that hole is just because it's not to save on material, because it's leather. It's a leather stacked heel base that they're using, so they have to drill out a chunk of it to get rid of it, and so this just helps reduce the weight a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and save that heel base. I'll write down on it later which foot it's for and everything. Now here's the funny thing that we get to. Like I said, it's been resoled, so whoever did it before, they sanded down a portion of the original sole here, and then they Blake stitched it all around. Right there you can see that stitching. They only stitched up to here, which is normal on a lot of Blake stitch shoes. You actually go a little bit under the heel base, or about that far too. It varies from brand to brand, or designs as well. However, they didn't do a full sole. They just glued this over top. Basically, it looks like they originally saved the Gucci little logo here, and no, we don't have the little Gucci logos, unfortunately. If you lose yours, we can't replace them. I'll have to disclose that right away. But they did a version that's kind of like a half sole, where they took it and spliced the material here, and then they sanded it here, and then they kind of spliced it all in together underneath the heel base to make it look like it's technically a full sole. Now, I have done this method before in the past, and the only time that we do it is with a very, very large boot or shoe. Now, this is, I think, like about a size 13, I believe. I can't even find the size on these things anymore. They're all so worn out, but I believe they're size 13, so it's not a oversized type of shoe. Like when I have had to splice it, we're talking about a size 15, 16, 17, or 18 even on a men's shoe, which is bigger, a lot bigger. And so we do have to do this splice sometimes, and we let the customer know that there's a chance we may have to do it, and they're fine with it because it's under the heel base and it's not going to come apart. But if it's possible to replace the whole sole, it's better to do it that route. Honestly, to me, this just seems like way more work to deal with, but at the same time, for these guys, it's actually easier just because, you know, they're just gluing the sole over top, where we're actually trying to make it look appearance wise nice and everything, and for them it's just slap it together and let it last for a while longer. So at this point I can't take off the rest of the sole because it's stitched, so I'm going to go ahead and sand out these stitches. I can technically cut them, but I'm going to go ahead and sand them. At least I can cut time down there. I'm going to have to pull off a little more of that heel base because it kind of ripped apart on me, so I'm going to have to make sure to pull that off. There's just like a thin layer, and then make sure to put it all back together. We don't know yet if we're going to save the heel base or get rid of it or what, but from the look of it, it looks like these shoes originally just had one sole on it. There was no welt, no decorative welt or anything, and then it was Blake stitched and everything all around. And so we're going to make sure that we get it properly taken care of, because that's just not okay. But let me go run these to the sander. Let me go ahead and take this one apart while I'm at it too, so I can sand both at the same time. I'll do that off video, and we'll see you back here in just a second. Alright everyone, so the plot thickens. There's a lot more going on here than I really hoped for. So these have been resoled a few times, it looks like. There are 2 rows of stitching going through another extra layer of soling here. So before I assume much else, I'm going to have to keep digging through these things, figure out exactly what's going on. So we're just going to have to play it by ear, because you guys just saw me pull off these soles right here. Well, see that line right there? This is another layer of soling right there. There's some cushion. I almost wonder if this was a factory sole that stretched all the way through, and this is kind of like a midsole / welt thing, because I also see some cushion right here. You can see just right there, a little black strip with a splice in it. It's just one mystery after another, so we're just gonna have to keep taking it apart. I've got all the stitches sanded out, but man, I hate it when shops do that. They just sand down a portion of it, and it just seems so like so much of a step was just skipped basically when they do that. I mean, there's practical uses for it and practical applications for doing such a thing, but not on a shoe like this. You know, there's just no reason for it, and I'm gonna have to keep digging in this mystery. This gentleman used to take his stuff actually to another place. I don't know who. It may have been somebody in a different state even. The other thing is he brings in a bunch of shines for Marcus to do too. And like today, Marcus was working on a pair that just was ridiculous. The amount of wax on there, I don't know if he was going to our local airport out here. I don't know how other airport shine guys are, but the ones out here in Denver, they use the torches and everything. Looks cool when they're using flames and stuff on people's shoes, but there was so much wax caked on. I mean, these things have a bunch of wax and mink oil caked on them, so the leather's soft, but it's like overly softened from mink oil, and then you can see all that wax there that's just been cracking. Just a heavy, thick coat. One of the reasons why we also don't like mirror shines. There's times where you should have a mirror shine, but majority of the time you don't need a mirror shine, honestly. So, but that is just ridiculous. That you could definitely tell that this was done using also a torch or a heat gun or something, just layering and caking on wax. It's nasty. So a lot of things we have to redo for this gentleman here. Now I know some guys love the mirror shine. By all means, you want to do it, go for it. But my opinion, the mirror shine is it's not a good thing. Long term, if your plan is to have these shoes for many years to come, it's not a good thing to have. See, look at that. It just ripped. That's that layer. So it does look like this layer here that we just got to is the original factory midsole / welt. So I'm going to have to go ahead and just start pulling all this off anyways, because we are going to be redoing the heel counter regardless in these. I don't like what's going on with these shoes. I don't like what's going on with the majority of this gentleman's shoes, just because whoever got to them just did a number on them, and it's driving me nuts. So got all those nails we're gonna have to make sure we take out and stuff. So good thing they didn't run any additional nails in. But here's that foam right there. There's that so-called replacement insole underneath. I can rip it all apart. Come on. I don't know which way this foam wants to go. There it goes. There it is. Whew. So there's that midsole there. I'm gonna have to debate on probably replacing it, because it looks like from the factory they did a little bit of a decorative outsole stitch right here at the toe. You can see those stitches there. Those did go clear through. You can see right there and stuff, and they did apparently possibly go through the original factory sole too. And so we're going to go ahead and replace this midsole because it's in too rough of a shape. The previous guy had sanded it down way too close and everything. It's a mess underneath. One other thing I'll point out is here's the heel bases. I don't know if the camera is really going to show it too much, but you can kind of see, obviously it's coming apart, but you can see the layers of wax on the heel base that's just cracking and all nasty too. You know, it's good to have wax, but you gotta have, you know, a balance. You can't overdo it with the waxes. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the stitches, get a lot of this stuff kind of cleaned out. I might actually throw these in the bath because these things are just, they're nasty. They're in rough, bad shape. So let me at least get all this stuff taken care of as far as pulling the stitches and nails out. Probably undo the heel liner too, because that's in bad shape anyways in there. I'm not happy. Ugh, I knew this was going to be a project. Alright, we'll see you guys back here in just a little bit and see where we're at. Alright everyone, so I got the second one apart, but I want to show a few things real quick. So first things first, this is the big issue a lot of times. See right here, got 2 rows from stitching. One that goes way back here, this is the original factory one, it looks like. And there's this one here. So these shoes have been resoled a handful of times already, and everything, but the previous Cobbler, it looks like, thankfully they only added 1 more row of stitching. Now, this is kind of a perfect opportunity to show you guys why there's a problem with Blake stitch shoes. So we compare Goodyear welted shoes, which are stitched on the outside of the sole, to a piece of leather that acts as a buffer between the upper of the shoe and the sole itself. And eventually even that welt can be replaced. If it's a factory replacing it, they're usually going to use a machine to stitch it. And if it's done by a good cobbler, they're going to hand stitch it. But Blake stitch shoes, regardless of if you're a good cobbler or if you're a factory, it's inevitable that eventually you're going to have additional perforations created by the machine sewing, because one piece of the machine goes underneath. You guys will see that later during the stitching. The other one where the needle is goes in here. And so we don't see, once the sole is covering everything up, we can't follow the exact same line. We can try to measure all we want, but it's still going to be off a little bit, and this is what happens. This is why Blake stitch shoes do have a much shorter life expectancy with the resoling. On average, if a good cobbler is resoling them, one that's got plenty of experience, those shoes should be able to get resoled at least 5 or 6 times before they start seeing close to the end of their life, or maybe already ended their life. However, if it's a cobbler that's a little either inexperienced, or I don't want to say shoddy, but technically that really means shoddy, then the life expectancy honestly is closer to about 3 or 4 times. Most companies also, if they offer factory recrafting on Blake stitch shoes, they do have a limitation of how many times they resole it, and typically it's about 2 or 3 times before they say nope, we can't resole it anymore. Goodyear welted shoes are kind of in the same boat. If you're having them recrafted by the factory because they're using a machine to replace that welt every single time, perforations start to occur in that leather upper right here, just like the Blake stitch shoes. So overall, the life expectancy does get shortened. That's why I highly recommend, you know, if you're going through a cobbler to get your shoes redone, they will save the original welt for as long as possible. And when time comes to actually replace the welt, then they will hand stitch it instead of using a machine, and they will make it into every single hole like original without creating any new additional holes or perforations. So just wanted to point that out. But yeah, and if you're also wondering, yes, my hands are filthy. That's all that wax, all that nasty layers and layers of wax. I'm definitely gonna have to give these things a bath now, and probably even hand them off to Marcus at this stage before the sole is on, to at least try to get some of this wax stripped off, because that's just not okay. You know, luxury shoes especially. So most of you, okay, you shoe enthusiasts out there, those of you guys who know about quality shoes, Goodyear welted shoes, you all know that quality shoes have nice durable leather, especially ones made here in the US. They tend to have a little bit more of a sturdiness to them. European shoes, especially ones like these here that are in the luxury category more than like the traditional, you know, original style build of Goodyear welted shoes. These are Blake stitched to be a low profile. They have really nice, supple, soft leather. The brand Gucci obviously is a brand name. You're paying majority for the brand, not so much for the quality build, but they do tend to use quality materials that are very soft and supple. They're supposed to feel nice and luxurious, but when you cake on this much wax, That's it. You just took everything that Gucci had and just dumped it down the drain, basically. The only part that's left over is the little labels there. That's it. Do not layer wax. If you want to do wax on your luxury shoes or on any shoes, use your bare fingers and just layer a thin coat on, 1 or 2 coats all around the shoes. I usually do one around the whole shoe and then a second coat on the toe and then the back of the heel. That's my recommendation. If you're needing a mirror shine for, say, an event or something, by all means, take that rag and build up your mirror shine. But anything more than that, especially with a nice leather like this, you just stripped everything from that leather that made it what it was. A nice, luxurious, soft leather, durable leather. Stop with the waxes, guys. Stop. Okay, that's just nasty. Look at my hands. That's just nasty. Okay. All right, everyone. So it looks absolutely horrendous right now. Obviously, a giant hole inside of it. All right. This is why I hate doing heel counters. There's just so much work to be done on it and stuff. Reconstruction of any kind is just a pain. Plus, every time I deal with that stuff, it's always stuff like this. I mean, look at that junk. I can't do anything about this except for either 1, sand it out, or 2, I'm going to be giving them a bath anyway, so a lot of this will come off a little bit easier later on. But here's the old heel counter that was in there. There's that really nasty heel portion that was all crushed up. I'm going to toss that right away. And then these chunks here. I should probably toss them, but I might actually keep them just for at least a basic trace pattern for the edges to make sure that kind of get as close as possible to the angle and stuff like that, just in case. Never want to rush and throw something out that you end up regretting later on and it ends up being in the dumpster already and it's too late. So, but yeah. Oh, and this is the heel liner that was covering it. Now that we're going to replace regardless because it's all shabby. There are thin spots already at this point and stuff, so it's kind of done for. So yeah, we'll get it replaced then. So let me go ahead and do the same thing to the other one real quick, get these in the baths. I'll take a few pictures of it maybe and stuff, and we'll go from there. And no, I'm not disclosing the ingredients for the bath treatment. The Swedish bath is a no-go in our entire industry. It's like a cobbler's taboo. If we disclose the key ingredients, well, key ingredients are one thing, but all the ingredients in it, yeah, we might get disowned from the cobbler industry. So definitely don't ask me for that, okay? And key ingredients either way is like, it's not going to do much for you anyways. So we'll see you guys back when we're doing the baths. All right, everyone. So we've got them inside the bath here. And so you can see how clear that water is. We'll come back a while later and see just how things are going. All right, everyone. So as you can see, that stuff is nasty. It's like pitch black. Saw yesterday how it was. Left them overnight. Usually we do that, especially because these had so much nastiness in it. If you're wondering what this is, it's a Swedish bath. And so it's a mixed up solution that we do in house. We tweak it depending on the types of materials and everything like that. And we'll let the shoes soak. There are no solvents in here, so it's not going to deactivate any adhesives or cause any problems. But sometimes we got to do this on shoes like these ones. It takes out a lot of salts, minerals, and other stuff, as you can see. But let's go ahead and take them out and then let them dry. Yeah, see, still looking great and everything. Just gotta wash them up because I gotta get some of that stuff out of there because it's kind of soaked in. Later on, once it's all evaporated and dried, it's good to go and ready for conditioning. We'll put on a temporary light conditioner like a Big 4 while we're resoling these guys and working on them, and then at the end of the whole resole and repair process, then we'll do the full treatment on them. I'll leave a link in the description if you're just wanting a Swedish bath done on your shoes. You don't necessarily have to have it done when the sole is off. It's usually just better to do it during the resole process. That way it gets inside there really good. And if you want to add it, definitely check it out. That's an add-on for your resole job. So we'll see you guys. All right, everyone. So it's a little bit of a mess on my toe because I've got a lot going on all at one time, especially with these guys too. So I've got a heel counter in here. Obviously, I'm still going to have to shape it a little bit better and stuff, but my main goal is also, because we did cut out a chunk of the liner here, and we're going to be replacing it and everything, I kind of have to simultaneously position a bunch of stuff and everything, and it's just a lot all at one time. That's why it's just a mess everywhere. And so I've got the heel liner cut out. For those of you cobblers especially out there who might be curious, this is actually a really cool trick. If you take your heel liner and you stitch it across at a little bit of an angle like that right there, and then you just cut it off, it makes it a nice little good starter for a heel count or heel liner, basically, because the back of the heel liner is rounded. That's for any of the cobblers out there. Those of you who are not, might be interesting to you, might not be, but go ahead and grab this. For those of you who are not cobblers especially, this is what we're putting in as the heel counter. It's a fiber type material that's very close to a fiberglass or carbon fiber. I don't remember the exact structure. It's probably some form of fiberglass most likely, but it's got like an adhesive in there and stuff, so when you heat it up it's moldable and then it becomes tacky and sticky. I don't care much for the adhesive part. What I'm after is that structurally this is really nice and durable. That's what we're using for the heel counter, so it's a huge upgrade considering that before and there was a cardboard type thing, which is this thing. I mean, it's technically a form of cardboard, but it's also more a little bit like a fiber board type material. Not the best stuff, not great or anything like that. I'm not a fan of it, but here's what's going on. So this one's a little bit further along. I'll kind of show you. So this is that heel liner that I just showed you right here that I cut out. This one's ready to go to be stitched down because it's really complicating to try to even show. This is the heel liner that's going through the inside of the shoe here. The new heel liner right here is just glued down, so I have to run a stitch across here. Then I can finally start getting everything shaped in here a little bit more, glued down, and you know, get it to glue. Then once it's all glued up and everything like that, then I can run the stitch on the outside of the heel right here. That kind of all lines up with the inner stitches on the inside here too. So a lot of lining up to do as well. And then once all of that's put together with simultaneously as this footbed piece that's pulled out basically, then I can start heating up the heel counter again, reshaping it one more time. Right now it's kind of like at a crude stage with the shaping, just because again you can see that there's spots that are kind of sticking out. Sorry, I got kind of interrupted there, but yeah, once I've got everything kind of more properly shaped up, then we can really continue on with it and stuff. That is one of the benefits of this heel counter, I guess. When I say that, when you heat it up it becomes tacky, so it's going to be kind of self-adhering to the rest of the materials and liners very well, so I don't have to deal with that, especially after gluing it, or not gluing it, after stitching it in place. Kind of limits my access to get back in there. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on with that. It's a lot of small details and a lot going on at one time with one pair of shoes basically. Alright everyone, so kind of back at it with these because I had to be very patient on trying to get that heel counter to shape and everything. There's just things were so damaged and misshapen that, I mean, you can still see some indentations from the leather itself, so it's gonna take some time for it to kind of correct itself as the person wears it. And I was trying to make sure it's all stretched over as best as possible and everything, using different shoe stretchers that have heel pieces to make sure it's back on track. Even if I had a original factory last for these, I don't know if it would honestly help with them, just because the way the damage was on that heel counter. But it's nice and sturdy now on the back edge here, got some resistance and everything. New leather heel liner on the inside, got everything tacked down right there. And because these are only stitched to about like right here with the Blake stitch method, we've got the nails holding it down on the back end here. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and fill in some of these cavity areas with cork a little bit, so just so there's some cushion and it takes up that empty space where the cavities are, and then we'll continue on with the sole then. Alright everyone, so we've got the cork all filled in here, and I'd gone ahead and used some black dye around the edge area of these soles, just because these don't have a welt on them originally. One thing I did want to mention, that usually I take the original soles and trace everything out, but because these are such a close fit on these shoes, because they're a fairly large size, I'm gonna have to give a lot of wiggle room on them. So right now I'm just gonna go ahead and put it all together and let it cure overnight, and the next step will be to trim and stitch. All right, everyone, so I kind of jumped the gun as far as working on these just because I have to try to hurry. The other thing is most of you have already seen it in some of my previous videos, the trimming, the stitching, all that kind of good stuff. I just wanted to make sure I was showing that we made sure to get inside that edge there with that black ink of the sole, so that it helps. I sometimes forget that. A lot of times cobblers forget that, if there's no welt especially. And I guess one of the things that, if I was to have been recording it, I had a little bit of a hiccup with my machine right in that area. You can see I'm gonna have to make sure to hammer that out some more. Something was going on with between the shoes and the stitcher. They weren't wanting to cooperate with each other, and honestly I was about ready to, you know, lose it on either the shoes or the machine basically. But at this point I'm going to go ahead and nail the whole back edge around. I've got the heel bases all glued up and everything, and yeah, I'm just gonna stick the heel bases. So I chose red here, red with a darker edge, obviously, because these are Gucci after all. And I think I was talking to Marcus about doing a green top lift finish on it for the JR combo heels. So let me go ahead and finish nailing this up, get the heel blocks on, because again I gotta kind of pick up my pace on these things. And I've got like 20 other things I gotta try to get done today too. And yeah, so we'll see you back here in just a little bit. All right, everyone, so obviously, like I mentioned, I kind of have to pick up my pace on these, so there were a number of things I kind of had to do off camera, but they're pretty basic things that I've already done before. And so I've got the top lift heel on. I thought green would be great with the red there for, you know, obviously Gucci and everything. So we got that on there. At this point, I've gone ahead and started punching some of the holes with one of these here. This is a small tool for punching, usually in leather, but I snapped off some of the pins so I have a little more spacing so that I can punch holes in the heel, because one, the nails look nice as a decoration, and two, they help hold that heel. I've noticed with these JR dovetail heels, the leather, it's glued onto the rubber, so you've got this rubber piece here, it's a combination, and the rubber kind of tucks in underneath and everything, and the leather goes on over top, and every now and then they kind of start coming undone a little bit, and so usually adding some nails is an added benefit. In other words, I end up having to use pliers like this, some needle nose, because my fingers are too fat, and it helps me get started on nailing them like that. So I'm just kind of showing you guys really quickly what it is I'm doing. There we go. Unfortunately, these needle nose pliers were on a magnet at some point, and now they're magnetizing to everything. So I have to be a little cautious not to have multiple nails stuck on here. Uh-oh, that one almost went sideways on me. Sometimes if the nail starts to go sideways, it's better to catch it. Otherwise it may poke out through the side, or it may end up kind of not looking very nice on the leather. It may end up scuffing it badly. So now I have to make sure I grab my tool, my awl here. Make sure I angle that hole a little better. There we go. Ah, voila. I wonder if I can get my fingers. Nope. I just lost that nail. Alright. This is frustrating when the nails start sticking like that. But I'm trying to get through at least this side here so I can show you what the next step is. So I've got 5 nails there, and I grab one of these punch tools. It's another awl that's got more of a rounded or flat head, and punch the nails down just a little bit so that the heads don't stick out as much, because they do get a little slippery. There we go. Looks like this one needs just a tad bit more. voila. So we got this side, and then we'll do the other side as well. And I've already got the other shoe taken care of, so let me get a few more things taken care of on them. But basically we're done, other than needing to hammer out a few other things and buff it out and stuff. And then Marcus is going to come in tomorrow morning and take care of the uppers after that Swedish bath. We had to really soak these quite a bit because these things were just nasty, like really nasty, from all the layers of wax that either a previous cobbler or somebody who did shoe shining did. And it was a lot of stuff on them. So thankfully we're able to get that out. Now, for those of you who might be wondering, how how much does a job like this cost? It's not cheap. It is definitely not cheap. If you don't consider the fact that we're using JR soles on these, if we were to use, say, just a standard house grade leather, we'd still be in the ballpark of probably that, definitely over 300, but depending on the construction, depending on the damage, just because these were also pretty beaten up and damaged by a previous cobbler, so definitely kind of adds on to the price. And it's been my luck lately that I've got a number of shoes right now that other shops have gotten their hands on, and like, I have nothing against other cobbler shops. I actually refer a number of cobbler shops, but there are some shops that they do the same quality of work, which is cheaper in price than mine, definitely, and they do it faster than me, definitely, but they do that same exact kind of quality of work on shoes like these Gucci's and other ones that are, worth hundreds if not even thousands of dollars. And unfortunately, the work that they're doing on shoes could be used on, say, a pair of shoes that may be a few $100s, and the expectation overall for those shoes that they're going to only last, like, on average, maybe anywhere between 3 to 8 years at most. And so after the leather on the upper starts to give out, they just toss them and buy a new pair, even after they've had at least one set of resoles done. Well, higher end shoes, they tend to have higher quality leather uppers and stuff, and they do last much longer. And so if the resole job is done right, the life expectancy is going to be significantly longer than in that case, where unfortunately the corners are cut, as you saw with these ones. I mean, there are a few spots where, in order for me to get the sole to be as original as possible fitting, there are a few small little spots, like right there. See those holes there? And there's not much I can do about it other than putting some light filler in there, and that's something I'm going to try to do a little bit too. It shortened that life expectancy, unfortunately, of these shoes because it was improperly done. And in order for me to get it done as original as possible, now there are some holes left behind, and too many holes were created. And it's sad to say, but I'm actually getting a lot more jobs like that lately, and it's not fun. One of the reasons why I'm also behind and always trying to hurry up and get more stuff done, and in combination with doing the videos, it definitely makes it a little bit challenging. So those of you who are being patient with me, I definitely appreciate it for sure. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video. At this stage, there's not really much else that I can really show you guys other than, that I'm going to put a little bit of light filler in there. It's not really anything crazy. It's just some severe renovating repair cream to kind of get some of those holes covered up. They're not going to fix them per se. It's appearance-wise going to make it look better. And then a few areas that I'm going to buff up and clean up. And then when Marcus does his upper treatment and magic on those, I'll take some photos and quick short clip, and that'll be at the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any short questions or comments, leave them down below. I have been a little behind on those, unfortunately, so if you really do have a question, I highly recommend checking us out either on Instagram or Facebook. All the links are in the description down below. I tend to get notifications on those at least, so I can respond a little quicker. Where email I had to shut off just because those will not stop coming through, especially with all the spam. And comments kind of were in the same boat as well, so I had to kind of cut it down just a little bit, unfortunately. Otherwise, if you enjoyed it, make sure you give a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell icon to be notified when we have our next video out. And that was a rebuild on a pair of Gucci's after another shop just demolished them. We'll see you guys next time.